Hello, my name is Clarke. Today we're on the farm here of Wayne Atchison. The farm is predominantly a beef finishing farm with a high focus on grassland management and production from grass. We finish roughly from 3,000 to 4,000 cattle in the year, and we purchase stores in the springtime. These stores are grazed throughout the summer period and then finished from autumn onwards. What we found is that in the earlier part of the spring and into the spring, the perennial ryegrass performed better. The multi-species was a lot slower to get started and going. Coming in now to the drier period, we have found that the multi-species has performed a lot better than the perennial ryegrass. Like in the past week or so, we have experienced growths of well over 100 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day on this particular mob. In terms of nutrient application, this particular mob has only got one application of cattle slurry in the spring. We've applied no chemical nitrogen to this particular mob. We have also applied some lime flour and molasses through the toe and foot foliar application system just to support the function and improve the amount of calcium which is required by the legumes. In terms of grazing management, this particular mob, there is 8 paddocks. Each paddock is approximately a hectare per paddock. So these batch of 45 cattle graze the 8 paddocks in around a 30-day, 32-day rotation. We're aiming kind of for 4 days in each paddock. We had a few challenges with weeds on this particular mob. This mob was established last autumn. It grew well throughout the winter time, and then in the spring, so spring 2022, we had quite a problem with chickweed within the sward, which left the sward quite open. So we tried to reduce the amount of chickweed that we had by grass harrowing and trying to remove some of that chickweed. Also in terms of docks and thistles, we have a few coming up through the sward, but how we're trying to manage that is we're doing some topping to try and eliminate those before the plant starts to seed head and whatnot. In terms of learnings of the project and what we would do differently, I just wouldn't say we're in a position just yet to identify exactly what we're doing in our next multi-species sward establishment, but things that we have noticed in the springtime, we maybe would say that the multi-species could be a bit more prone to poaching due to its openness. So in terms of management of livestock in spring and after a new established sward, it's quite important to watch how you graze it out. In this particular sward, so obviously we're a trial and error with multi-species swards. We're trying to look into new things and identify what suits grass or ground best. This particular mob was sown out in a 16 species mixture. Going forward, we're not sure whether that will be the option. We're probably considering a mixture which is a wee bit more grass heavy and less herbs than this particular mixture. So look, it's a wee bit of trial and error. Would we plant more multi-species swards on the farm? The answer would be yes. There's a few reasons behind that. One of the biggest reasons is obvious in terms of chemical inputs and reduction in fertilizer costs. So this particular sward has received no chemical inputs this year, and there's none planned for it. So that has significant wins for both the environment and financial returns for the farm. Also, we have seen huge benefits with multi-species swards in soil fertility. One example would be earthworm counts on the multi-species swards are a lot better than that of perennial ryegrass swards. So there's definitely huge wins for soil fertility on a multi-species sward. In terms of advice for anyone thinking about establishing some multi-species swards, first thing I would ensure that pH is correct, as that's very important. Also, in terms of the mixture, probably some of the off-the-shelf mixtures could be as good, rather than trying to blend your own, just to get you started. Also, it's quite important that you ensure you have a mob, so that you're grazing that mob with multi-species. So if you have your 8 paddocks within your mob, make sure those cattle stay consistently within that particular mob on multi-species, just to ensure that there's no variation in the animal's diet. So something we are thinking about on this particular farm is stitching in some clover and herbs to existing swards. So some of the swards that have been reseeded in recent years, and the grass is performing well, it could be an option for other farmers, but that's definitely what we're thinking about doing, is stitching in clover and herbs to those swards.